Hello, my name is Tanya, and I research um, various things in the universe. And sound, everything you hear is an experience of cause and effect. So in science, you have your various scientists, and everyone has a theory. And for me, um, I just know things. And I understand things. And so I wanted to learn um, what terminology was used to describe what I knew and what I understand. So I'm going to start with um, what I understand about physics. Okay, you have Albert Einstein, who whose theory I'm very familiar with in such a way that I can explain how the theory works in a very unique way. Now, I'm sorry, I turned my fan off. Now, everything I do, predicting what someone else will do on the other end. And I'm putting my fan on medium. Now, Einstein's theory, it kind of said whatever's happening here is happening over there. And that's true, but I want to explain it a little further. Albert Einstein um, divorced his wife upon winning the Nobel Peace Prize. He offered her the prize money to divorce him. Now, a lot of people wouldn't think that had anything to do with his reality, but it had everything to do with his reality and his next life and his next life and his next life and so forth. So I have this ability to explain who certain people were in their past lives, which in science, when you can go backward, it's called intention. Intention creates reality. It's not why you do something, it's why you're doing what you're doing. And you don't even realize each lifetime you are born to experience your energy that you leave behind. And some of you might not believe in reincarnation, but then I will ask you this. If science is convinced that energy cannot be destroyed and it takes new form, then my theory will easily make sense to you. I'm energy, your energy, everything that created everything around me was created with energy. Now, this is the complex part of the equation. The canvas that I paint on, my son painted this painting and my son painted the painting behind me. My son was Albert Einstein. And I'm going to tell you a little story about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, upon passing away, had experiences that he had to experience based on the experiences of the people, the animals, everything in his life. He would experience the energy that they experienced through him. Now, once he passed away, and the people he left behind, and the energy he left behind, his studies, his resources, the positive and negative things he said, the positive and negative reactions people had to him, He would be born to experience that energy. That's called duality. And so Albert Einstein, when you die, you're born as you die. The experience of death is what you're born to experience when you are born. So then I'm going to explain who I was. I'm just going to tell you the last person I was, because I was many people, but the last person that I was Marilyn Monroe. Now, some people might think Marilyn Monroe is beautiful. Stop right there. Being beautiful is not what you think it is. Our energy is a reflection of who we really are inside. Now, Stephen Hawking proposed the Big Bang Theory. Big Bang is kind of an aggressive, assertive word, bang. And but the universe itself is a living organism, which would mean that it was like a birth, right? If you plant a seed and it's growing, you're intentionally creating nature's reality. What if that seed wasn't meant to be planted by you? And then you have to wonder why you're planting that seed. And if you plant that seed, are you going to be the one that tends to that garden, or are you going to sell your house and leave someone else to care for that seed? This is where it gets really mystical, as people would call it. So we began as energy. Now, what would happen if, say, there are energies, and then they like their energy and they manifest another energy? And then this energy we call this energy God. And this energy is the universe. And that's how God would know everything you do. Because everything you do, you're doing to God, through God, whatever you're doing. He's this energy that we call a he, because we assume that God is male. But what we should relate to is God as energy and pure energy, which means there is no male or female. There is pure energy. Now, we came up with the words male, female, boy, girl, he, she, her, him. We came up with these words. Human beings started naming everything. Now, every time you name something, the letters in those words, you have acronyms. Everything is going to come and mean something different. And we kind of know that everything in the universe just shifts a little bit all the time. Shoot, 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 shoot. Even me moving my hand like that, there will come a time when I move my hand like that, again, for a different reason. Everything you do in each lifetime, you're born to experience from a different perspective. Marilyn Monroe liked really smart men. But the way she would get the smart men is by seduction, right? She wasn't just showing up like Tanya would and say, hey, here I am. She would show up as the most feminine version of herself, to be with people that, because she was beautiful, they would treat her a little differently, because maybe they were intimidated a little bit, maybe they had ego, whatever their intention was for treating her the way they treated her, it impacted her energy. Marilyn Monroe was a lot of great people in her lifetime prior to being Marilyn Monroe. And one of these men that she was, and I'm not going to name him right now, but one of these men that she was painted a woman. He was a famous artist, and he painted this woman, and she was nude, and she was holding a scarf. Now, when that woman was paid for that sitting, she wasn't paid very much money. And that man received a fair amount of pay for his paintings. But because the people he painted did not receive a lot of money, he would end up with not a lot of money, and he would end up experiencing a lot of things, and then he would pass away. But his art would be some of the most famous art in the world. Now, when he came back, eventually came back as Marilyn Monroe, he would have to experience what it felt like to be a woman who held a scarf in the nude and was paid very little money. She was paid $50. And these things create a story, and they tell part of a story. And so Marilyn Monroe popped pills, she drank, showed up late for work, but she didn't show up late for work because she was lazy. She wanted to do the best job she could, and she had anxiety about it. Now that would go back to her other lives, and then you would have to read the actual reality of that person's life, not the theory they created, not the job they did, but why they did what they did. So in me knowing that Marilyn Monroe was living in a foster home, then I know that some point in time in her past life, we have a life that is a soul, but to a scientist, that would be string theory. And I explain what happens throughout string theory. Now, in science, they predicted that someone like me exists. They predicted, even Stephen Hawking predicted this person would have low blood pressure, or he stated they would have low blood pressure. And throughout my childhood and some of my adult life, a lot of my adult life, especially if I'm injured or something, I have low blood pressure, and it's to the point where I like start shaking and I fall down to the ground. But that would mimic my grandfather, whom had Parkinson's disease, and that would mimic things that I would have had in my past life or I will have in my next life. Those things show up to tell you what else is going to happen. So then in physics, there would have to be a math equation that would substantiate what I'm telling you. So that part is, I'm terrible at math. I'm not good at math. But that part of the equation is actually the easiest part of the equation. That's the part that's easy to prove because numbers don't lie. So Albert Einstein was my son Noah. And Albert Einstein was also Princess Diana. And I'm going to show you how I know this. And but firstly, I'm going to give you the simple equation of my son Noah. My birthday is July 3rd, 1963. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it in a simple way. 73196 3. Okay. 731963. I guess I need to do this reverse. Okay, July 3rd, 1963. My son Noah was Princess Diana. Princess Diana was born 7/1/1962. So then we have Diana, 7/1/1962. Then we have Marilyn Monroe, 6/1/1926. Marilyn Monroe passed away when the year Princess Diana was born. Okay, so, and then I was born after Marilyn Monroe died, but I was born right before JFK died. JFK was assassinated on 11/22/1963. My firstborn son, Ryan, was born 11/5/1985. My daughter, Molly, was born 8/5/1992. Noah was born 5/22/1998. Okay, so we have all of these birth dates. Now, all of my children have the number 5. My daughter was born on the 5th day, and my firstborn was born on the 5th day, and my youngest was born on the 5th month on the 22nd day. Now, because my son Ryan, I have the number 3, I'm born on the 3rd day. So if you add 8 and 3, that makes 11. So because both of these children that are still living had 5 as their birth date, and Noah 5 as his birth month, Noah passed away. His body was found on 9/22/2020. 9/22/2020. My son Noah was 22 years old. Okay. My friend is Albert. My son and I were very close. And in 2018, I was working at a place called the Dillon Apartments. The address was 7111 Santa Monica Boulevard. 7111 is my birthday. 7/3. 111 was also the apartment number that Noah and I had lived in previous to where we live now. But I was working there on March 4th, 2018. So March 4th, 2018, I was working at the Dillon. On March 4th, 2019, Luke Perry, who played Dylan, passed away. Now, the address I was working at was my birthday. The address that my son passed away at was 63 Lime Street. That was the year that I was born. So the day I was working at the Dillon and I predicted a scientist was passing that was in my way based on Mini Coopers that were parked outside and a moving truck, Stephen Hawking passed away on Albert Einstein's birthday that day. Now, my son Noah was Albert Einstein. So later on in the year, in August, on August 21st, my son Noah overdosed and was in a coma. And the hospital he went to was the same hospital that Lou Perry would die at in March of 2019. Now, I was working at the Dillon on March 4th, and my client, Scott, I was cleaning an Airbnb, and my client, Scott, got a notice to pay rent or quit. And Scott chose to quit his lease, and he stayed there the rest of the month and then moved to a different apartment. Luke Perry's last role he played, his name was Scott. So I'm able to understand the math in the universe. I don't understand the math when a physicist does it. I understand it as it's occurring. And then because of what has already happened, which is called intention, which allows me to go into the past, I'm able to look at the map that's already there. I don't have to try to create a problem that makes sense. The universe already makes sense. It's just a matter of teaching people what logic really is. So we're energy. And to put things in perspective, and some people are going to call me crazy, but you know what? They called Albert Einstein crazy too. And until that solar eclipse, and it was proven that light doesn't bend, it was simple, right? It was simple. He was crazy until he could be proven correct. Now, who do you think created that ability? The universe. The universe is always in charge. If there's a fire, if there's an earthquake, it is intentional. It's not a coincidence. It's not an accident. If you're born into a horrible situation, if you're born into what you think is a blessing, you just haven't experienced the cause and the effect part from a different perspective. So, as I say, to put things in perspective, my dog, whom I love very much, was Michael Jackson. And I'm going to show you the math on how I know this. Okay, firstly, it took a while. It takes longer for me to figure out pets because I have to actually experience the duality somehow. And it was different. So my son Noah was Princess Diana and was also Albert Einstein. But he was also other energies. Jackie and JFK had 2 children that did not live. When you have a pregnancy, that is a soul experiencing what it itself had done. So say I had an abortion, I would experience being an abortion. I am a soul. I am energy. I experience energy. So what you do becomes your reality. Everything you say, everything you speak, everything you think. So there are lots of people out there who are talking about you can manifest what you want. But there are lots of people that think they were born into something that wasn't fair. Another example, these are people that I know who they were in past lives, and the math equation will show that it is conclusive. And the math equation comes from your birth date, your parents' birth dates, the school address that you went to, the name of the school you went to, the number of the street you grew up on, your social security number, your credit card numbers, your bank numbers, your student ID numbers, your driver's license, your ID, the receipt you get at McDonald's, everything that has a number. If you kept all of those pieces of paper, you don't even have to keep all of them. You have so much data, it's easy to conclude. All of that stuff just tells you what's going to happen. So I read the intention of the number. So I hear sounds, and those sounds, and I think, when did I hear that sound? What happened the last time I heard that sound? Oh my God, there's going to be a fire. And then all of a sudden I'll be sitting there and woo, woo, woo. But I don't go and try to predict those things. I don't spend my time trying to predict those things. But I do know that if I get really angry, it's because something bad is getting ready to happen. You know how people say, oh my gosh, it's just one thing after another? Your energy is telling you it's coming towards you. So pay attention. So anyway, on Sunset Boulevard, I'm going to go here real quick. On Sunset Boulevard, there was a billboard, and there was this place I used to go dancing at all the time called Dublin's. And it was on Sunset, and it was across the street from a bar that used to be called the Roxbury. And there were two billboards. There was a billboard over here, over here, and a billboard over here. Now, the Roxbury is now called the Pink Taco. And this is going to be how the universe shows us what's coming. So on this billboard, it said, Luke Perry is Scott. And there was a picture of Luke Perry. But they tore the Dublins down a long time ago, and they built something new. So to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Dublin's is no longer there. So that one, I know something goes. So Luke Perry had not passed away yet, but there it was, this sign. It said, Luke Perry is Scott. And remember, I worked at the Dillon the year before, and I worked for a guy named Scott at the Dillon, and the address was my birthday. So then I know it's all connected somehow. And there, I was also working there when Stephen Hawking passed away, and I had written Stephen Hawking and sent him these numbers in February of that year. And then on March 1st, he presented his final paper saying the universe was going to end. And then I was there on the day he passed away, working at this apartment building. And I looked outside, and there were two Mini Coopers parked across the street, and then there were two Mini Coopers parked right here. You never see four Mini Coopers parked like that. And then there's a driveway coming out of the building that I was at, and then over behind McDonald's parking lot, there was another Mini Cooper, which is my Mini Cooper, which is in my daughter's name, and I knew that it was up to be returned. So that meant I would no longer have that Mini Cooper anymore. And I was parked behind McDonald's. Marilyn Monroe's handprints are in front of McDonald's on Hollywood Boulevard. And because I know I was Marilyn Monroe, I know there's part of this equation. So then these two Mini Coopers and these two Mini Coopers, and there was a moving truck over here on the other side of the street, parked opposite my Mini Cooper. And on the side of the truck, it said Prodigy. So this car on my side of the street, this Mini Cooper, when it pulled out and it left, and then another car pulled in, I knew Stephen Hawking had passed away. But I didn't know it was Stephen because I really wanted to work with him. But I knew a scientist was leaving that was in my way. But I also didn't know at the time, I hadn't done the math correctly at the time. I didn't know it meant my son. I didn't know my son was Albert Einstein until I really started doing the math. So I was working at this building again, like a few days later, and I found this guy was moving. This guy was moving out of the building, and he had this giant poster of Albert Einstein, and he was sticking his tongue out. I love Albert Einstein, but I don't like when people stick their tongue out in photos. So I brought it home and I painted over his mouth with blue. My son loved it. My son said, that I love that piece of work, Mom. And then my son ended up in a coma on my mother's birthday the same year. and he had tubes coming out of his mouth. So the blue I painted was the blue tube he would have coming out of his mouth. Now, every piece of art that has been painted is predicting something. Everything I do, I can look to see what's happening in the universe just by looking around my apartment. I will think and then I will look at a book. Like right now, I'm looking at a book and it says Earth Science. Then I'm looking at a game and it says Monopoly. Then I'm looking at another game and it says Mancala. So then I look at the letters in those words and then I form new words and then I take the words apart and then I think, oh, and Polly. So I think of Polly, and then I think of Cal Polly. Then I think of my friend Cal, who passed away from alcoholism. And then I think of Cal was from Canada. And then I think of Man Mancala, and then I think of this guy that I used to date in Canada, and then he wrote a song called Money Honey, and so I think of Monopoly, then I think of my ex, then I think of a tropical island, and I think of the wealthiest family, and then I go back to the Kennedys, and then both of them lived in compounds. Now, the math is already there. The math is the easy part to prove. I'm trying to answer the question of why everything works as it does. We are energy. If we're energy and we evolved from animals, you have to wonder why. How? How does that work? Well, it's not so much evolve. We manifest. Our energy manifests reality. We create our own reality. Say I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I don't ever want to work. I want someone to feed me. I just want to be warm and cozy and happy and get to go to the beach and do all of these things. That's the life I want. I don't ever want to have to work. Well, depending on what you've done, who you've been loyal to, whatever you did, you may come back as a dog, a beloved dog, or you may come back as an angry dog or a scared dog or whatever based on what you leave behind. Now, my dog was Michael Jackson, and it might sound funny to you, like, how do you even know Michael Jackson? Why would Michael Jackson be your dog? Well, I'm going to explain. Firstly, my son was Albert Einstein and Princess Diana. When Princess Diana passed away, she passed away with Dodi Fayed. Paris Jackson was Dodi Fayed. Paris Jackson was also my friend, my son's friend. And when my son passed away, he passed away with his friend Sophie, who is 20 years old. And it was also Paris's friend. And Paris Jackson had given my son a tattoo, "Rest in Peace," on his arm. That's her saying, her energy is saying, hey, I was there when you passed away. I used to live on an island. Princess Diana is buried on an island. My son, my ex is from an island, but when you're doing this equation, then all of a sudden the names are the same. The names are the same. I'm not going to talk about my ex and who he is and where he's from, but he has the same life as the Kennedy family, only from a different perspective. Even lives in a compound, even from a political family. But this isn't the part of the story I really care to tell because I don't really care. But what happens is you have Jackie and her husband. Now, Jackie and her husband had to have been people that were born to experience what they experienced. Now, Jackie Onassis wanted to be a model, and her dad forbid it. He's like, "You're not going to be a model. You're going to do you're going to go this route." And so, in this lifetime, she is one of the most famous models in the world. And my son, when he passed away, became her child. So I'm able to further this equation by predicting what will happen in her life because I already know who my son was, what my son's sins were, what Albert Einstein had done, and Princess Diana. Now, Princess Diana, when she was pregnant with William and Harry, she had a lot of emotional stuff going on, and she threw herself down the stairs while she was pregnant. And when I gave birth to my son, I was walking up the stairs and I hemorrhaged. So it would be the opposite, but I'm like the opposite. I'm the reaction to his actions, Diana's actions. That's what a parent is. That's why in the Bible it says you're born into the sins of your parents. That means you're born to experience the kind of person you were through your current reality from a different perspective. Now, when my son was born, he was born to experience what he left behind. So when Harry was 12, Diana had passed away. And when Noah was this age, I checked myself into a hospital because I kept predicting. I just knew stuff and I didn't know what I was experiencing. And I was experiencing the future before it even happened, and it was really scary. So I thought I was unstable. So I checked myself into a hospital and I was in the hospital for 21 days. Now, Marilyn Monroe's mother passed away 22 years after Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe had her own life issues, and I was born to experience that statement, "Judge not, lest you be judged." There was one of the movies she did. She was talking about how her foot. She thought her foot was smaller, and so I was born with a severe club foot on my left foot, and I would have surgery for the first 7 years of my life. Remember her movie, The 7 Year Itch? I don't know if you've ever had stitches, but they're very itchy. And so my foot was always itchy for like the first 7 years of my life when I had a cast on or I had just had surgery. And so Marilyn Monroe was cast in many movies. What I'm telling you is every word you put out, every word a scientist writes, every word a scientist tries to prove, they have to live that reality. If a scientist makes a lot of money off of something, even if, say, someone works at a church or you have a priest or a minister, they're actually sinning. That's a sin. You're not allowed to speak on behalf of something you don't understand. So for me, when I'm doing this book and this work that I'm doing, I've asked the universe, like, I want to be happy. I want to be fair. I want to be diplomatic. I want to be kind. I want to be loving. I want to be fair to all energy, all energy. Because what happens is I'm going to explain a little more math to you, and then you might really want to listen to the rest. So there I am on Sunset, and there are these two billboards. Now, Gabrielle Contreras used to be on 90210, and she was on the far left side of this billboard. And the rest of the 90210 cast was on this billboard, except Luke Perry, who was across the street on his own billboard. And it said, Luke Perry is Scott. And remember, I was working for the guy named Scott at the Dylan, and Luke Perry played Dylan in 90210. And Scott got the pay rent or quit notice on March 4th. Luke Perry died the next year on March 4th. Now, as I'm standing there and I am like I was driving by and I noticed the billboards and I'm like, okay, that has to mean something. So I was live on Facebook and I'm like, when they take this billboard down, someone's going to leave or pass away, or the business is going to close down. And this was right before the COVID virus. So, and I knew this because Gabrielle Contreras had a talk show, and I was a guest on her talk show. And the episode was called Do Blondes Have More Fun? And there I am, and her show was canceled, the episode that I was on. So it was the last episode to ever show of her talk show. So then I knew Dublin's was taken down and Luke Perry was no longer. And then so when this billboard came down, someone else would be no longer. So what happened was, but when I was on the Gabrielle Contreras show, I had not given birth to my son Noah yet. But I wasn't understanding the math that far in advance. And I didn't realize it was also telling me that my son was going to pass away. So when the billboard came down, the owner passed away. The owner also owns the Viper Room. Now, recently, Paris Jackson performed at the Viper Room, and on the 4th of December. Now, 4 is the number 22, 2 plus 2. And my son Noah and her friend Sophie were found on the 22nd. Now, this is where the math gets, you have to really understand this. So my son Noah passed away on the 22nd he was found on the 22nd at the age of 22 with his friend Sophie, who was 20. When Luke Perry passed away, Luke Perry has a son named Jack, whom they called Fox something. I don't remember. Wild, some Wolfie something. And so all of this stuff, the wolf name would come up. But then what happened was my son ended up in a coma, and he was in a coma at the same hospital Luke Perry passed away. But he was at this hospital before Luke Perry was. In physics, this would be called entanglement. So Princess Diana died when she was 36, and Marilyn Monroe died when she was 36. And this year, my son, whom was Princess Diana, passed away at the age of 22. But Prince Harry is 36, and Meghan gave birth to Archie Harrison, and at the age of 36. My son's last name is Harris. Harry is not Prince Harry's name. Henry is Prince Harry's name. So we have Harry, who is not his real name, and Harris is not my son's biological last name. So we have Harry son, or Harris on. My son had a tattoo of dice, which Albert Einstein had said God wouldn't roll the dice. Then he had this tattoo covered with anarchy. So my son's nickname was No-No. He had many nicknames: Habib, No-No, Herb, Herb Valencias. All of these nicknames are prophecy. When you give someone a nickname, you don't realize you're telling part of a story. That's the universe telling you who they were past life. Just like my dog. My dog was Michael Jackson. But before my dog was Michael Jackson was a scientist. And the scientist invented Dr. Pepper. And the scientist was from Waco, Texas. And what does caffeine do? Caffeine is a stimulant. It keeps you awake. What happens when you have too much? You have a hard time sleeping. But because there was so much money made from this stimulant, this darker colored beverage, Michael Jackson would get the nickname Wacko Jacko. People don't know that it was manifested from Waco, Texas. And he got that nickname not because of Michael Jackson, it's because of what people said about children that were drinking these sodas. Oh my God, my kid's crazy. Look at that kid. It's like all hyped up on soda. Everything you say, how that person is impacted by that beverage, then Michael Jackson's soul is responsible for that, because this is how it works. His soul had to have judged something that had occurred. It's when you judge. When you judge. If you don't judge, it kind of just goes by. And the universe will align you to be put in a position to judge yourself. But then remember, all of these things that happened to Michael Jackson are things that were occurring through this science and other people he was previous life. So it's like if you teach your child to hunt, and you're like one of those angry hunters, and you're like teaching your child to hunt, and you're teaching your child to be hateful and just go blast them, kid. And then you pass away, and then your child wants to go hunting because it reminds them of good times with you, and your child has no idea that you have been reborn as the animal that they're hunting. So what you teach is what you experience through what you teach. So it's be very careful. Um, so and Eddie Griffin, there was a comedian, Eddie Griffin. I used to have a relationship with him. And when I was involved with him, it was the Osbourne Christmas special. Michael Jackson called him, and he was on the phone with Michael Jackson at my apartment. And then he went to the Osbourne Christmas special, and then the Osbournes were canceled after that. But what happens is, and then Michael was with Eddie in Las Vegas. So this tells me stuff, right? And then I dated another well-known person and another person, and all these guys knew each other. And then these other two men, all three of them now live in Las Vegas. So that tells me something will occur in Las Vegas. And this stuff isn't, it's not an accident. It's not just a coincidence. Everything that happens, it's you're like, I remember one year, my daughter, it was my daughter's first Christmas, and I'm going to tell you some little stories, and then the math will make even more sense. So it was Christmas, and my ex, I asked him to meet me in Hawaii, and it was kind of impulsive. It was Christmas Day, and my family was at my house, and when we were just all sitting there, and I got this impulse to go to Hawaii. That was the universe telling me about something. So I went to the airport with my daughter, who was born in August, and my daughter was born August 5th, and that was also the same day that Marilyn Monroe's body was found. So there I am. I'm on an airplane, and there was like this stuff going on at the airport, and there was this man who ended up sitting next to me with my daughter, and he was a really nice man, and we were talking, and I had no idea who he was. I don't watch basketball. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of basketball, but my ex is a basketball like enthusiast. Like, he loves basketball, he plays basketball, he loves basketball. And that Christmas, his brother had given him an autographed basketball signed by Jerry West. Now, I asked my ex to meet me in Hawaii, but he didn't want to. I sat next to Jerry West on that flight, the whole flight, and talked to Jerry, and he was the nicest person. We talked about family, we talked about children, we talked about his children. We talked about a great deal and how lucky we were to be sitting on that plane on Christmas. And so in doing that, if my ex would have met me, he would have met Jerry West had he been there. And that goes back to one of the first times I ever flew with my ex, and they didn't do the tickets right or something. And we had one first class ticket and one coach ticket, and he let me sit in coach. And he took the first class ticket because he's an asshole. But anyway, that was the universe saying, now you get to sit next to Jerry West and he doesn't. And you get to have a normal conversation with a nice person because you like nice people. And it wasn't until I got off the plane and I'm like, hey, I met this really nice man who's like a basketball player recruiting people or something, and his name's Jerry West, and he was just like, no way. He goes, that's my favorite basketball player of all time. As a matter of fact, my brother gave me a basketball autographed by him for Christmas. And that's what happens when you're a jerk. People always get what you want. If you ever notice, people get what you want. I remember one day, my ex was buying me a car. Well, he leased the car for me for 5 years. And I picked out a red Mercedes 560 SL. And I had no idea that was my mom's dream car. I had no idea. But my mom didn't want to give me, my mom had two cars, and my stepdad bought this Mustang uh, convertible, and my mom wouldn't let me have it. And so that was the universe's way of giving me something that she wanted, and she wouldn't let me have. That she wouldn't let me have one of two cars, and then that was my car. So that's how the universe works out. And but we create this reality through our pure intentions. And this stuff tells us stuff. It like when I got the car, I wasn't getting the car because I knew it was my mom's favorite car and I was trying to hurt her. That's not, I just wanted that car. But I didn't know why I wanted that car. I just wanted that car. And but I won't tell what happened after. But I will tell you that I did lose a child, and then my ex's partner got pregnant, and the soul of the child that I lost became the child that they had together. And this is where it talks about in the Bible about love thy neighbor, keep thy enemy close. It's because if you think someone's getting everything that you're not getting, it's to show you what those things in the Bible mean. Now, I'm not a religious person. I don't go to church. I've gone into churches. I love churches when nobody's in them. But when I'm in a church with people sitting there and I'm thinking about the reality of, okay, firstly, let me explain. Jesus is energy, just like God is energy. We are the collective physiological reality of God. That's another way of how he knows everything we're doing. We're energy and we take new form. So we began, imagine energy is this blue light that's just there. It's just pure light. And this light's like there. And it's self-aware. And it's like, I like this energy. Wow, I just, and all of a sudden it's like another energy like it manifests, and another one, and another one. And it's going to start shifting. It's like if you're in a room with all of your favorite things, like your favorite people, your favorite sounds, your favorite smells, it can overwhelm you. And then you'll slowly shift. And you're like, it's like when you eat your favorite food over and over and over and over again. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't stand this food. And then all of a sudden your reality starts shifting. And then you say, I hate this food. I don't want to eat this food anymore. And then you post on your social media, look at me. This was me in another part of the world with a bunch of underprivileged people and they have nothing. I'm learning gratitude. I shouldn't complain about the food I don't have because they have less. I'm blessed. Here, I'm going to send you $25. All of a sudden, there will come a time where you'll be at a restaurant and you will start complaining about that order, and the order might come to $24.99, and you donated $25 to people to eat, and you're complaining about one meal that's $24.99, and all of a sudden your reality will shift. And then something will shift. It could be your health, it could be someone else's health, it could be anything. You can be charged twice for that purchase to donate money. The universe will challenge your intention. It will say, hey, so every time something happens to you, it's on purpose. You created that purpose. So, and that goes down to a crime. Say someone's robbing a bank and they shoot a bunch of people and they die. The police shoot them. Firstly, they did something in their past life to be in that position, but they pass away and other people pass away. But then the guy that shoots him is considered a hero, right? And that's not quite what happened. That guy that shot that guy, they had something in a past life, and this was their way of fulfilling it, because that guy probably killed that guy before he died. So he was born to get to kill him, and that way he dies again. You don't get away with anything. You get away with nothing. If someone's wrongly accused of something, if someone's arrested for something, if someone, anything, they're born to experience what they leave behind. An example, Billie Eilish, the singer, she was Martin Luther King. She was Martin Luther King. So in me knowing that she was Martin Luther King, her music makes way more sense to me. But also it's telling me something. Telling me, okay, who was she before she was Martin Luther King? Before she was Martin Luther King, she was a lot of white people. She was a lot of white people. She was an Asian person. She was a lot of energies. Martin Luther King hated white people at first because when he was a white person, he heard all of the racist stuff they were saying or doing. So he would be born to experience that reality and make a difference and be acknowledged for the good thoughts he had, not understanding that he was experiencing that because of something he did. You're born to judge yourself and you don't even know it. Like everyone you judge is a reflection of who you used to be. So say there I am with my grandpa and I'm like, I don't know all of the bad stuff my grandpa did, right? And then all of a sudden, or all the judgments my grandfather had. And there I am, and I'm like, thinking my grandpa's the greatest person in the whole wide world. And this man does this awful thing. But I don't know my grandpa did the same thing. And I'm saying, I'm on the news going, that guy needs to die. They need to send him to death row. And I have no idea my grandpa did the same thing. And then all of a sudden, my grandpa dies. Whatever happens to that person, I'm adamant about punishing what happened to my grandpa because he did the same thing. When a judge is in a courtroom, our prisons are full of people that were judges, people that fought in wars, people that are lawyers, people that are surgeons, anyone that partakes in an act against other energy in a hostile way comes back to experience that judgment. In the Bible, it says not to sue anyone, and if you judge, you will be judged. So there you have a judge, and the judge is like sitting there, like, do you, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if you've been in a courtroom. I have zero respect for our legal system. But that doesn't mean I don't understand the ignorance that's within it. And I don't do my best to follow rules. But it's not trying to follow the rules. It's just me being me. It's me being non-hypocritical. If I'm going to forgive you for something, then you better forgive me for something because it's not my place to judge you. Even though I might resent you, I might not like you, it's not my place to say, you can't do that because I already know the universe is going to take care of everything because cause and effect is already in motion. Everything's in motion. So as I say this and as I understand this, people continue to do things and they want to blame everybody. And then if I say, hey, we're responsible for our own energy, and people are like, no, I don't believe that. I believe some people should be punished. And then I say, but did you just eat an animal? And I'm not judging. I eat meat sometimes. So I'm like, did you eat an animal? Yeah, I ate meat. So when did an animal become meat? So then you're saying your dog is meat, your cat is meat, your bird is meat. We choose what we want in our lives and we choose how we want it to appear in our lives without understanding. Have you ever seen a dog video where they're like nursing a kitten or you see all of these natural occurrences between nature where they look out for each other. They like, even a lion doesn't hunt all day, it hunts when it's hungry. It's like, but humans don't. We hunt everything. We're like, I need more of this, I need more of that, I need lots of this, I need lots of that. And we don't think about, what is this doing to the universe? What is this doing? Like, I started really asking myself things, and I'm still a hypocrite. I'm no saint by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm aware that when the bad stuff, like if I skin my knee or scrape my elbow or hit my knee or my arm or bump my head, it's because I did something first. I hammered something into a wall, or I kicked something, or I was pounding on something. That's what cause and effect implies. If you're doing something, it's occurring somewhere, and some people call that karma. Karma is a very complex math equation if you simplify it by calling it karma. And these words, these sentences, everything become reality. So I explain physics in a very different way. And if you don't like physics, you're not going to like me. And if you don't, I'm not religious. But if you don't understand physics, you're never going to understand the Bible. And You're just not. I mean that in a nice way, but you're not. But and if you preach, um, if you ask energy to pay for your energy, say you're like, and this is what happens a lot. Remember in the Bible, and remember, I'm not religious, but I know that Jesus existed, and I know that God is reality. So, and this isn't going to get biblical, so please don't tune out. This is science. I write about physics. So, in the Bible, it said that Jesus threw some tables. He went into the city and he threw these tables, and he was mad, and he was telling the peddlers of goods that they couldn't do that in a place of worship. But he had also killed a lamb, and he had healed the sick, and he manifested more stronger wine. And he did these things without thinking of the repercussions. Like, if God is his father, and God is good, and God is just, then God created everyone to be as they were for a reason. So if you heal one man, then you must heal all men. If you heal one energy, then you must not kill a lamb and heal a sick man that could have been a really bad guy. You don't know, but God knows everything, right? If you believe in God, then God is everything. So in science, we understand that energy cannot be destroyed. It takes a new form. So that means if Jesus was healing somebody, that energy of sickness went somewhere else. It's still in the universe, but it went somewhere else. So that's what it would imply in science. So anyway, it's hard doing these live videos because what happens is people come in and people go out, and people come in and people go out, and they don't listen to what I do. I painted COVID virus over, it's almost been 2 years. And when I painted it, I painted a rhinoceros wearing a pair of pants with a tie and a shirt, and he's talking to a lamb with a crown on. Now, when I lived in Corona, California in 2015, I got an email from this girl, and she sent it, and we had both dated the same person. And she sent me an email. Actually, it was more than dating. It was 31 years I knew this person. So, but she sent me an email, and in that email, he called me a virus. And she sent it to me on Christmas Day in 2015. So I got called a virus when I lived in Corona. Then I painted this rhinoceros. Now, the name of the bat where the COVID began, he's called a rhinolophidae. And so that's why I would paint the rhino, and he's talking to the crown. Corona is a crown. But Mountbatten is also the name of the royal family. So I was saying earlier, the math is my son, whom was Noah, who passed away on, they found him September 22nd, 2020. And he was with his friend Sophie. My son Noah was 22. Now, Marilyn Monroe we have many lives. Our soul has many lives. In science, that's called string theory. That's energy with a lot of different twists and turns and duality going on in there, and all different kinds of scientific words. But I try to simplify it and explain physics in reality. Now, Albert Einstein was married to his second cousin. He divorced his first wife. He had a child that he had not met. And this is what happens in physics. Scientists exclude themselves from the equation. It's like energy is happening outside of them, and they are energy. So I try to explain what that means. And in physics and cosmology, they're aware that the explanation of reality is far more spiritual than they had ever known. And if you read any scientific books, it will tell you this. So I predict things before they happen. I predicted the state of the world as it is now. I have hundreds of hours of video on my Facebook, and anybody's welcome to go there and see it. On March 12th, 2018, I painted Kim Kardashian. I didn't know why I was painting Kim Kardashian. I just painted Kim Kardashian. I was just like, I don't know what's going on with this, but something really uncomfortable. And I painted a bunch of numbers. On my mom's birthday, August 21st, later on in the year, my son Noah overdosed and he was put into a coma. And the doctor that explained his tracheotomy to me was Dr. Kardashian. I had painted Dr. Kardashian before. I also painted my ex-boyfriend, Ravi Rao, who is a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon and specialized in pediatric neurology. I'm sorry, I have a stuff up nose. Later in that, my son's recovery, when my son was recovering from his coma, Dr. Ravi Rao was the doctor that released him from care. Now, I had painted Ravi Rao months and months and months before, and I painted him as a tree. Now, in the process of making a surgical mask, it is called melting. And the product, the fabrics come from trees. So in order to figure out what's going on with COVID, you'd have to figure out the equation involving a tree, never mind, I'm not doing this anymore. These kids aren't, you really need to show